Edinburgh's skyline is dominated by its historic castle, sat atop Castle Rock. But just to the east, along the same volcanic ridge, rises the equally captivating Arthur's Seat, offering a natural counterpoint to the man-made fortress. This iconic hill, the highest point in Edinburgh at 823 feet, was formed approximately 350 million years ago, during the Carboniferous period, a time before dinosaurs roamed the earth. The creation of Arthur's Seat is attributed to volcanic activity, part of the same volcanic system that formed Castle Rock. However, unlike the castle's rock, which was shaped primarily by the erosion of softer materials, leaving the hard basalt exposed, Arthur's Seat showcases a more complex geological history. After the volcano became extinct, the entire region was subjected to intense glacial activity during the Ice Ages. These glaciers sculpted the landscape, carving out the crags and tail-like formations that are so characteristic of Arthur's Seat today. These natural processes left behind a rugged, undulating terrain that dramatically rises from the surrounding landscape, providing panoramic views of the city and across the Firth of Forth. The geological layers visible in the cliffs and crags tell a story of ancient environments, from lava flows to sediment deposition, each layer contributing to the understanding of Scotland's geological past. You can actually trace the direction the glaciers travelled in by examining the build-up of sediment on the slopes of the hill, where deposits, known as moraines, outline the paths where glaciers once rested, slowly moulding the terrain beneath them. Furthermore, Arthur's Seat isn't just a geological marvel, it's steeped in history and mythology. The name Arthur's Seat is thought by some to be a corruption of the Gaelic Ardna Seat, which means height of the arrows. Arthur's Seat is closely linked with myths and legends, historically tied to ancient kings and mythical creatures, making it an iconic and intriguing natural site. Perhaps the most famous legend associated with the hill is that of the sleeping dragon. According to the tale, a dragon once flew across the land where Edinburgh now lies. The dragon terrorised villages and consumed livestock, and after devouring all the animals it could find, the dragon was so full that it lay down to rest. The spot where the dragon settled and eventually fell into a deep sleep is said to be Arthur's Seat. Over time, the dragon supposedly petrified and turned to stone, its body forming the contours of the hill, with the various peaks and dips along the ridge said to mirror the dragon's spine and tail. Perhaps unsurprisingly, given its name, the hill also has links to King Arthur, and once you learn about this legend, you may find yourself hoping it's true. There's a fascinating theory suggesting that Arthur's Seat could have been the location of the legendary Camelot, the famous castle central to King Arthur's tales. According to this idea, Arthur and his loyal knights may have resided on the outskirts of Edinburgh. While some argued that the site might not have been Camelot itself, it's believed by some that Arthur and his knights were familiar with the region, possibly from engaging in fierce battles nearby. As you ascend Arthur's Seat, imagine the extraordinary historical and mythical events that could have unfolded just steps from where you stand. In more modern times, Arthur's Seat continues to captivate the imagination with its lasting mysteries and unusual sightings, including reports of big cats roaming its rugged terrain. In 2012, a puma was apparently sighted, stalking through the long grass in the middle of the night by a police helicopter that was circling the area. They were looking for a woman who'd gone missing, and she was believed to be in the region. On a chilly evening veiled in fog, Inspector White, aboard a helicopter equipped with an infrared camera, coordinated with his ground team as they ventured into the thick underbrush of Arthur's Seat. This dual vantage search would soon escalate into an unexpected wildlife encounter. Their mission began as a routine search for the missing woman, but as the night deepened, the ordinary quickly turned to extraordinary. As the team navigated through the frost-covered foliage, the infrared camera picked up an unusually large heat signature. Initially, it was presumed to be the missing woman, possibly in a state of distress. The atmosphere was tense as Inspector White directed a female officer towards the source. With each step, the anticipation grew, until the heat source suddenly shifted. To the inspector's astonishment, the figure that rose was not a human, but a large feline, which he estimated to be 3 times the size of the officer. The creature, majestic yet daunting, was thought to be a puma, and the officer, unaware of the creature's proximity due to its stealth in the darkness, was calmly instructed by White to stop and retreat. Obeying without question, she walked back towards the safety of the team, as the cat bounded off into the night, its form disappearing into the mist as quickly as it had appeared. The encounter left no physical evidence, no video footage captured the brief yet heart-stopping moment. However, Inspector White's experience and the thermal signatures convinced him of the cat's identity and presence. He later shared with the Edinburgh Evening News his firm belief that big cats roamed freely in Edinburgh, a statement that stirred both concern and fascination among the local community. Days later, the search team's primary mission concluded successfully, with a safe recovery of the missing woman, but the mysterious sighting on Arthur's Seat remained a hot topic. Inspector White's encounter serves as a gripping reminder of nature's unpredictability and the wild mysteries that lie just beyond the city's hustle and bustle. After exploring the myth-enshrouded slopes of Arthur's Seat, our journey through Edinburgh's legendary landscapes brings us to another significant site, Colton Hill. Unlike the rugged natural formation of enigmatic Arthur's Seat, Colton Hill bears the marks of planned architectural endeavours, reflecting a different aspect of Edinburgh's storied history. Perched just east of the city centre, Colton Hill is not only a part of the city's distinctive skyline, but also a crucible of Scottish history and Enlightenment thinking. The hill is home to iconic structures such as the National Monument, the Nelson Monument, and the City Observatory. This development represents Edinburgh's transition from medieval to modern, intertwining cultural progress with the timeless legends of its ancient past. As you shift your gaze from the mythical to the monumental, Colton Hill offers a panoramic view, not just of the city, but also of the evolution of Scottish identity. Regent Terrace on Colton Hill is a historic and architecturally significant street, part of William Henry Playfair's Eastern New Town scheme, initiated in the early 19th century. The terrace was planned as part of a grand design to enhance the eastern section of Edinburgh's New Town, specifically to complement the scenic Colton Hill area. Construction of Regent Terrace began in 1824, with a design featuring classical Greek revival architecture, a style that Playfair is renowned for and which earned Edinburgh the nickname Athens of the North. The layout of the terrace was designed to make the most of the views over the city and to the royal parklands below, following the natural contours of the land rather than enforcing a rigid, symmetrical design. The development was aimed at attracting affluent residents, and over the years it's been home to various notable figures, including artists, politicians and diplomats. Despite initial enthusiasm, the wider eastern New Town development faced several setbacks, including economic downturns and planning issues, which slowed its progress significantly. However, Regent Terrace itself was completed successfully and remains one of Edinburgh's most prestigious addresses. Yet, beneath the surface of this affluent enclave, tales persist of darker happenings behind closed doors, hinting at a spectral presence that some believe haunts the elegant facades of Regent Terrace. The following account is direct witness testimony and is taken from an interview he sat for with the Fortean Times magazine, and is read to us by John Tantalon, from North Edinburgh Nightmares.
On the 8th of June 1979, I received my medical discharge from the British Army and went to Edinburgh, where 3 friends from Napier College had invited me to share their flat until I could find a place of my own. As I walked down Regent Terrace, the Georgian buildings of old cobbled streets with characteristic gas lamps perched on black wrought iron railings almost made me forget that I was living in the 20th century. Dougie Burton met me at number 25A, a dingy basement flat. There were bars on all the windows, rising damp on the walls and creaky floorboards. Although the sun was blazing down outside, there was a definite air of gloom in the place, and I was struck by the cold atmosphere. The living room was not so badly affected as the kitchen, which was very chilly. The flat was only big enough for 2 with any comfort, never mind 3 students and a friend, but we were chums and the cramped living didn't bother us too much. Dougie went back to college, leaving me to settle in. I made my way down the narrow dark hallway to the kitchen. The heavy wooden door needed a bit of effort to push open, mainly due to the thick carpet that covered part of the stone floor. The chill remained, along with the feeling of another presence. I started to fill the kettle for tea when a voice close to my ear barked, "Yes." I jumped out of my skin and spun around to face the intruder, but there was nobody there. I searched the flat, convinced that Dougie or the others were playing a practical joke. But no one was around except the cat, huddled around the sink with hackles raised and claws drawn. Fearing ridicule, I refrained from mentioning my experience to Dougie, Derek or Colin. I reasoned that perhaps the voice had carried from the flat next door. One hot and sunny Saturday, about a week later, Dougie and his fiancée Janet went out to shop, leaving me alone. When they returned, I sat with Dougie in the kitchen. He listened pensively without laughing and then called down the hall into a kitchen for Janet to put the kettle on. A voice answered, "Yes." It was the same voice I'd heard before. It certainly wasn't Janet's voice. Dougie appeared not to notice and was talking with a voice that answered yes and no. I led him into the kitchen. There was a chilly atmosphere. But no Janet. We stood there in silence. Then the front door opened and Janet walked in. She had gone back to the local grocer and had forgotten something. After the second episode, Dougie, Derek and Colin related the experiences which follow. The lads moved into the flat in March of 1979. Strange noises started to keep them awake at night. The most common sound was that of a baby crying. The sound would reverberate through the entire flat, growing louder and then suddenly stopping. Sometimes the sound of laboured breathing would appear to follow one of them around the flat, particularly in the small hours on the way to the bathroom. One night, I heard this breathing sound move around our bedroom while the others were asleep. Objects, including watches and rings, would vanish, reappearing in very odd places. Colin placed his watch on his bedside table one morning before dressing. Reaching down, he found it had gone. He searched under the table and the bed without result. No one else was in the flat at the time. 2 days later, the watch was found in the biscuit tin, which was kept in the pantry. Soon all 3 young men were sleeping in the same room, fearful of the unknown presence. One cold April night, a warm, furry animal jumped on top of Colin's bed. He began to stroke what he thought was the cat, talking softly to it as it purred. Dougie asked him to stop talking to himself and asked what he meant. Dougie said he had the cat with him. Derek then said that he was stroking the cat. Brian McCready, a friend who was staying the night, then proclaimed all 3 to be idiots, as he had the cat with him. Dougie leapt out of bed and switched on the light. There was no cat in the room. One July night, I felt a heavy, furry object jump onto my bed, curl up behind my head and breathe heavily down my neck. On turning to the shop away, I thought that was the cat. I found nothing. I thought the place might be infested with rats, but none could be found. The following Sunday, Colin awoke just before 5 a.m. Tried to turn over and found himself unable to move. He was paralysed. The bed began to vibrate very rapidly, building up to a violent peak. He was sweating and could not cry for help. Something heavy and furry jumped on the bed and began to run up and down, its hot breath stifling his nostrils. Suddenly the bed was still. The furry thing was gone, and Colin stumbled out of bed in a panic. Everyone was still asleep, and the cat was on the outside of the living room window, its teeth and claws bared. It would not enter the flat for days. The following night, we're all lying in bed, discussing the events and what we could do about them, when the sound of heavy footsteps came down the hall towards the living room door. Derek had locked the door after we retired and placed a stout chair against it. The footsteps stopped, the door handle began to turn, and the door started to bend inwards, as if something extremely strong was pushing against it. This happened 3 times before the footsteps retreated. We heard the kitchen door open and shut with a slam that made us jump. No one dared to investigate. Nothing happened for 4 weeks, as the kitchen was quite large. Derek had curtained off the dining area for us as a bedroom, and began to sleep there in it regularly, in spite of the cold and damp. Near the end of July, we all attended an all-night students' party a few miles away. Derek returned to the flat in the early hours with his girlfriend. They huddled in Derek's improvised bedroom trying to get some sleep. Suddenly, Derek snapped awake and saw the kitchen door opening. It didn't creak or rub against the carpet, but glided open and silently and slowly began to close again. Derek and his girlfriend watched scared stiff as it opened again and remained open. After much persuasion, Derek decided to get out of the door to close and lock it. The door instantly slammed shut with a tremendous bang. The next morning, Derek's girlfriend said she would never enter the flat again. 2 weeks later, a Saturday, Derek was awakened by the front door being opened. It was Brian McCready. As he walked in, Derek noted his girlfriend Kirsten follow close behind him. Derek sat up, drank a mouthful of tea that Brian had brought him, and noticed that Kristen had vanished. "Where's Kristen?" asked Derek. Brian said that she was at college for the whole day. Derek still swears he saw 2 people enter the room. It was time to try and find an explanation for all this stuff. I suggested a séance. After much debate, grumbling and general argument, we agreed to give it a try. On the 25th of July, 1979 at 10:30 a.m., Douglas, Colin, Derek, Brian and myself were gathered around a heavy wooden table in the kitchen. There was the numbered alphabet in a wide circle, with a whiskey glass in the centre and the yes and no cards on either side. "Is anybody there?" asked Derek. "No," answer. Brian and I had no better luck, but when Colin asked the glass, shot to the yes. As we began to ask questions in turn, only Colin would get an answer. The spirit claimed to be a French trader called John. He had died of an illness in the building and his spirit could not leave. We could not get any more information, only that he was unhappy and wanted to find peace. I wasn't satisfied, because I thought that so many sounds and contact experiences must surely be caused by more than one presence. I pressed for a further séance, which is held 4 days later. The same people were present along with 2 female students, whose names escape me. We began at 11:50 p.m. This time it was Dougie who made contact. I've reconstructed the dialogue from my notes. "Who are you?" Erratic movement of the glass. No coherent name. "Where are you from?" "Earth." "When did you pass on?" "The 21st century." Murmurs of disbelief. I asked everyone in turn to take their fingers off the glass to eliminate the possibility of pranking, but the story remained consistent, and everyone was as mystified as I was. "Which part of Earth did you come from?" Another time dimension. "How did you die?" "Illness, which was caused by the fallout of vehicular power source." "What powered your craft?" "Inter-react drive." "Why do you answer only my questions?" "You are my ancestor." "How can you help?" "Release from your time zone." "How?" "I do not know." "Do you want us to contact you again?" "Yes." At this point, Brian jokingly asked, "How much is the price of petrol these days?" The glass shot across the table and fell over. The séance was concluded. Immediately, the electrical lighting failed, and we panicked. The female students were screaming. Brian and I found ourselves wrestling on the hall floor, while Dougie, Colin and Derek were trapped in the kitchen, unable to open the kitchen door, which had closed by itself. Suddenly, the door opened again. Dougie lit a match, and the lights came on. The flat was ice cold, and the two girls said they would never enter the flat again. At 2 p.m. that night, I felt a strange sense of foreboding. A tremendous crash came from the kitchen, followed by the sound of the kitchen table being dragged across the stone floor and objects being thrown around. The commotion lasted a good 10 minutes, then silence. The following morning, Derek admitted that he had heard the sounds too. We cautiously entered the kitchen. Nothing was out of place. Colin packed his things and left, followed shortly after by Derek. Then Dougie moved out to share a flat with Janet. I wasn't going to live there alone. However, my curiosity got the better of me. I arranged to share a room with a young hotel chef at the very top of the house. For a week or two, things were quiet, except for footsteps ascending the winding staircase. It was 2:30 a.m. on the 14th of August. I had returned to the house after a night with friends in a sober condition. As I felt my way through the dark hall to the foot of the stairs, the feeling of dread returned. As I reached out to switch on the stairway light, a furry thing grasped my wrist. I shrieked and raced up the stairs. I peered over the edge into the blackness and saw two slitted yellow eyes staring at me. I didn't sleep a wink that night. The following evening, I arose at 5:30 p.m. to start a new job as a hotel night porter. I picked up my Guinness pint mug, which I kept my toothbrush, etc., and I walked down the hall to the bathroom. Realising I'd forgotten my towel, I set the mug beside the bath and returned to the bedroom. I was about to go back to the bathroom when I saw my mug back on top of the dressing table. I distinctly remember putting it by the bath, and certainly didn't take it back to the bedroom. 2 weeks later, I spent another sleepless day when the cupboard door kept unlocking itself and creaking open. I had had enough and decided to leave the following day.
The haunting of Regent Terrace remains a mystery. The chilling encounters experienced by its residents throughout that period suggest a deeper, perhaps darker narrative lurking within its walls. Could the disturbances be the work of a restless spirit, weaving tales of time travel to confuse and further unsettle its captive audience? Or might these phenomena be rooted in the ancient energies of the land, where history and time meld into the realm of the unexplained? The trickster nature of the poltergeist at Regent Terrace challenges our understanding of hauntings, suggesting that the past, present, and perhaps even the future can converge in mysterious ways. Could the spirited disturbances be the machinations of a restless spirit wronged in life, seeking resolution in the afterlife? Or perhaps they are the manifestations of historical energies, trapped in a cycle of repetition, forever imprinting their presence on the physical realm. The whispers of betrayal, revenge, and unresolved tension seem to seep through the cracks of this prestigious facade, suggesting that even the most grandiose dwellings are not immune to the spectral remnants of the past.